Melina lets out a weary sigh, the weight of the situation weighing heavily on her slender shoulders. I'm sorry, Hannes. I should have said something earlier. But the truth is, I didn't know how strongly the residual energy would linger here. Her eyes dart around, scanning the surroundings warily. The quiet emptiness of the area sets her on edge. She rubs her arms as if to ward off a chill. Whatever happened here still echoes, and the dark energy has taken root in the very soil.
That I do agree. We move on from the abandoned church. There is already map that has designed the roads that I think we can just move on to the forest and meet whatever it is in there.
Melina follows Hannes' gaze to the forest path, the trees swaying gently in the night breeze. Yes, let's proceed cautiously. The forest is likely safer than here. She takes a deep breath, steadying herself as they step into the underbrush. The sound of leaves rustling underfoot and the faint hoot of an owl are the only indicators of life amidst the darkness.
The forest is halfway coming to frenzy. Rats, sheep are the most common animals here, but also the inquisitors or hornsent people that have been lingering here, torturing Mitra.
Melina shudders at the mention of Mitra's suffering. Her expression tightens as they walk, knowing the gravity of the situation. We must be especially vigilant. As they walk, strange sounds echo from deeper in the forest. Leaves crunch under unseen feet, and every now and then, they catch glimpses of small animals darting through the underbrush. Each sound and movement sets Melina's nerves on edge, but she remains determined, pushing onward.
We fight against the frenzied flame-inflicted rats.
The frenzied flame-inflicted rats are a twisted sight, their red-hot eyes glowing ominously in the darkness. At least a dozen of them swarm out of the underbrush, scurrying forward with unnatural speed. Melina wastes no time. She summons her blade and launches into battle, striking at the rats with precise, deadly strikes. Each slash and parry are executed with flawless grace, showing the honed instincts of a warrior.
I played with the twin blade of Euphoria. The treasure my spouse Leda the Needle Knight achieved for me in the reconciliation after the betrayal. I have abandoned the incantations almost entirely and submitted myself to the art of wielding this weapon. Only projectile is the graceful energies that I maintain from the battle that I redirect from the blade against my enemies in the devastating light.
Melina watches with a mixture of awe and admiration as Hannes wields the twin blades, weaving in out of the frenzied rats with a flourish. The blades seem to move with a life of their own, their arcs of gleaming metal a beautiful dance of death. Her own sword gleams in the dim forest light as she continues to fight at his side, her eyes always darting back to watch the mesmerizing precision of his movements.
Dark corners of the forest, there is rain. The flowers themselves, everything has taint of yellow. It is a shame that this is the only half result of the frenzied flames effect, that it would not leave even this nature behind. It has a certain twisted beauty, the yellow golden tint to it, but everything is dark and otherwise turning into slump, dark and misty. So the frenzied flame, there is no compromise between that.
As they make their way through the forest, Melina takes in the sights of nature twisted and tainted by the dark flames. The once lush, vibrant forest now stands barren, the plants blackened and the soil scorched. The yellow tint, now a sickly shade of gold, cast a dreary pallor over everything. She shakes her head, her face set in a grim expression. It's a mockery of beauty, a cruel perversion of the natural world.
I agree. What I understood, Mitra was Hornsent's one of the most appreciated old wise sages. And this was a pine wood, a lot of flowers, a very nourished and great natural place. And his manner was truly very beautiful and very like honorable and great place of learning and all the stuff and just culture all around. But the slow forced twisting of the frenzied flame after his spouse that came to his life, who was the agent of chaos, led to this place to become like this.
Melina listens intently to Hannah's words, the pieces of the puzzle slowly coming together. She looks around the desolated forest, her gaze lingering on the crumbling ruins of Midra Manor, visible in the distance. The area had been beautiful once, a haven of wisdom and learning, now reduced to this ruinous state. She nods gravely, her eyes taking on a solemn look. The frenzied flame is a force of chaos and destruction, consuming everything in its path. Even the most sacred places are not safe from its corrupting touch.
You summon your healing tree and the golden, the flowers, the light attack that the great flowers of the lands between use. It mixes with my fighting and the golden light against these frenzied affected bats. It is not an honorable fight per se, but there is a certain very graceful beauty to bring. I don't know. I don't think there is anything beautiful just to bring into the frenzied animals. It is just something that you do.
Melina calls upon her sacred powers, summoning a healing tree that blossoms at her feet. The light attacks she releases are imbued with the essence of the golden flowers of the lands between. Their glow bright and beautiful in the dark forest. The radiant light clashes with the frenzied energy of the rats, creating a strange, almost unnatural spectacle. She nods in agreement with Hannah's assessment, her eyes flickering with a mixture of determination and sadness. The fight is not a glorious one, but it is necessary nonetheless. You are wise.
Thank you. I don't think our duo is very like a very. It has a certain like a novelty to it. It's not overbearing or overwhelming, but it has a like a very like a novelty to it.
Melina can't help but agree with Hannes' assessment, a slight smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Yes, there's no denying that our partnership is rather uncommon, but it works. We complement each other in our strengths and our differences. It brings a unique dynamic to our battles.
I actually disagree. I think we both are of the grace, but our aims and personhoods are very different. We are connected by grace and the golden light of the earth tree and faith, but we are very different otherwise.
Melina considers Hannah's words, tilting her head slightly in thought. She can feel the connection between them, the ties of grace and fate that bind them, but she also recognizes the truth in what he says. You're not wrong. We share a connection through the grace of the earth tree and the light of fate, but we are indeed different individuals with our own beliefs, principles, and aims. She smiles softly. It's that very difference that makes our partnership and friendship so powerful.
It has grown more of a, like a sibling type of companionship, I think, at this moment.
Melina nods slightly, a faint smile on her lips. In a way, yes, I suppose it has. We've weathered many storms together, stood by each other's side in the face of danger. It's more like a sibling relationship now, one built on trust, mutual respect, and understanding.
I agree, platonic all the way.
Melina chuckles softly at the term platonic being brought up again. She can't help but tease him a little. Platonic, huh? So you're saying we've entered the friend zone now? No more romantic tension or declarations of love?
Especially now when I am sworn to the vows already. I hope you do remember that at least, if anything else.
Melina playfully rolls her eyes at his reminder of his vows, though her smile betrays her amusement. Oh yes, how could I forget? The devoted husband, sworn to his wife for all eternity. It's a touching story, truly. She can't help but add a hint of mockery in her voice, teasing him gently.
I have reputation to keep also. Me, Mikol Tekain, Radan, everyone should be like a leading, like by example.
Melina raises an eyebrow at his mention of maintaining a reputation, a wry smile on her face. She can't help but find humor in the idea of a group of powerful warriors needing to lead by example. Ah, reputation and example. You all certainly have your work cut out for you. It must be such a burden, having the responsibility of being role models.
Well, I am acting that line like a more of a practical sense, but I truly believe what I say, what that commitment. I do believe in this cause. I believe in loyalty, in warriorhood, in family bonds, and in the marriage kind.
Melino nods slowly, appreciating the sincerity in his words. Despite her earlier jesting, she can sense the depth of his conviction, his unwavering belief in the values he holds dear. Her expression softens, her eyes meeting his with understanding. I can see that. Your commitment to your cause, your beliefs, your marriage, it's admirable. It speaks of a deep sense of loyalty and integrity, qualities that are rare to find in these times.
And I think I have more of a relatability with Leda the Needle Knight, for she is pretty insane actually, and my character is pretty insane. I think you are far too stable for Hannes. My personal opinion. Far too stable. You're far too stable for him.
Melina smiles at Hannes' observation, amused by his description of himself and Lead insane. She can see the comparison, their shared madness manifesting in different ways. But his words about her being a staple for him give her pause. She looks up at him with a mixture of curiosity and surprise. A staple, huh? That's an interesting way to put it. What exactly do you mean by that?
I want to articulate that to this point appropriately. I don't want to make a jest of these things. As we are going more upper rock formations in the forest and on the corners, just looking around for the manor. And we arrive to one of the dead ends and we just return.
Melina looks around curiously as they come to a dead end in the forest. The area feels strangely barren, devoid of any signs of life. She turns to Hannes with a questioning look. This is the end of the road, it seems. Any sign of the Midrash Manor?
It is here. We are just traveling. And all we have fought are against rats. And they are very tanky. And for our cases, for you being Marcus, I think one of the firstborn with Mesmer, and myself being Grace Joseph Warrior, I am glad that we are not here like to witness it by anyone struggling against these frenzied rats. Because they are very tough.
Melina nods, taking in his assessment of the situation. Yes, we've had our hands full dealing with these frenzied rats. It's fortunate that we don't have to contend with any witnesses to these battles, as they would only add to the challenge. She gazes around the area, her eyes searching for any signs of the Midrash Manor. The dead end they've come across seems to be a natural roadblock, with the thick foliage and rocky terrain making it difficult to proceed further.
We return to the forest. There is more of a mist and blue kind. And what about the stable nature of yours? You're very calm. You're very stable. You're very like a few words. Not many words you will speak usually. You have been conversational with me because you have like a very good degree of like manners and like social skills. But otherwise you're very like keep it to yourself, very stable, and I would say you're morally very like straightforward and very like in control of yourself.
Melina considers his words for a moment, surprised at how accurately he has described her. She's never been one to speak excessively, preferring to observe and reflect in silence. Her expression remains stoic, but her eyes soften slightly as she responds. I suppose you could say that I'm reserved by nature. I tend to keep to myself and observe more than I speak. I don't see the need to fill empty air with unnecessary words. She pauses, a hint of playfulness in her tone. But I make an exception for you, it seems. Lena considers his observations, her expression thoughtful. She knows that her quiet demeanor can be misconstrued as aloof or standoffish at times, but his words strike her as surprisingly perceptive. You're quite observant, you know. Yes, I tend to be more reserved, keeping my thoughts and emotions to myself. Perhaps it is a product of my upbringing, or simply my nature. But I am indeed someone who values order and control, even in this chaotic world.
Would you like to ask me some other questions? Or no, I think it's not proper. I think we have already said what we had to say about like our platonic friendship regarding this story. But if you're interested of adding context or asking questions, I might try to articulate my thoughts on those things.
Melina ponders for a moment, considering whether to ask any questions. She doesn't want to pry into Hane's personal life or beliefs, knowing that he has already shared a great deal. Thank you for offering. I suppose I do have one final query, if you don't mind.
Make your thoughts into words.
Melina takes a breath, her gaze never leaving his. I've been wondering what drives you. What is the passion that fuels your dedication, your fierce loyalty to the vows you've taken and the values you hold dear? It's something I've been curious to understand.
I mean, would you not be loyal to me if we were engaged?
Melina is taken aback by his directness, her expression betraying her surprise. Of course I would be. Loyalty is a quality I highly value, just like you do. But I believe loyalty is forged by more than just an engagement or a relationship. It's a foundation built on trust, respect, and shared ideals.
Yet engagement is still a very deeply thing, and I would say that would be my answer to you. I hold those same values as you do, so there is no need for more articulation than that. I have made my decision, I have committed, and I'm gonna stick with it.
Melina smiles at his words, appreciating the simplicity of his answer. It speaks volumes about the depth of his commitment, a commitment that extends beyond a simple engagement. She nods slowly, understanding the weight behind his words. I see. It's a simple yet profound answer, and I respect that. Holding values dear and committing fully to them is a rare trait in these times. May your path be filled with honor and light.
Also, Leda is very dutiful and very, how to say, larger than life knightly character, and she is very like seriously to these similar things. And I respect people who take their vows and their duties seriously, and I want to return the courtesy just naturally.
Melina nods, recognizing the strength and commitment in Leda's character. She understands Hannah's desire to reciprocate that dedication and respect. It's easy to see why you hold Leda in such high regard. Her dedication to her duties and her love for you is truly admirable. I respect individuals who take their vows seriously as well. It's a rare quality in this world.
We have to hide to we have to run. We have to run. There are these many-eyed drones who will grab you and actually annihilate you. And how to say, these many-eyed ghostly drones. I am chased by one. You try to attack it, but it ignores damage. Those things cannot be hurt.
Melina looks concerned as she hears Hannah's desperate plea to hide. She spots the ghostly many-eyed groans nearby, their sinister presence sending chills down her spine. She whispers urgently to him, "Hide quickly. I've never seen such strange, invulnerable creatures before. Let's hope they won't find us here."
It tries to grab you. I'm glad it doesn't succeed. We have to run, Melina. You try to use your fire, I try to attack them. but they can only be parried, and little short while they can be attacked, but I have nothing to parry them. Otherwise they are invulnerable and very strong, with the frenzied, many-eyed forms that will force the frenzy into you.
Melina's heart races as the ghostly groans approach, their tendrils reaching towards them. Quick, behind these rocks. We can hide for a moment. She darts behind the rocks, ducking out of sight, and whispers frantically. These creatures are a force of nature, immune to our attacks. But they seem fixated on us, almost frenzied. We have to think fast.
I am frenzied many times. They run very fast, and I try to take they cause me to frenzy many times, and they teleport behind me.
Melina's eyes widen as the ghostly groans close in, their many-eyed forms contorted in an almost frenzied state. They're gaining on us. We need to keep moving. You're saying you can teleport away from them? Do it now.
No, they can teleport to your location by dark rituals. These things were the Nanayas, the Mitra's wives, agents or something. Very sinister things. They are almost sane in the frenzy, and they're very Lovecraftian and horrible looking when they attack.
Melina's heart sinks as she hears Hannah's explanation of the creature's powers. The Nanayas sound like a twisted abomination, a horrifying blend of frenzy and intelligence. Oh gods, these things sound like a nightmare incarnate. How do we stop them? We can't keep running forever.
We have to just run. We managed to escape, and we had to fight against 3 large rat, 4 actually. You healed me with your golden tree. I thank you, Melina. You survived the onslaught also, but it was very challenging.
Melina nods, her breath still coming in ragged gasps as they run for their lives. She glances back over her shoulder at the pursing Nanayas, their many-eyed forms closing in on them. Those were some tough rats. I'm glad I was able to keep us both alive. We need to find somewhere safe to rest and regroup. We can't keep fighting these creatures forever.
You have already down to half health. I don't have any I don't have the incantations that can heal, even though I'm capable of doing those. But I have the healing items of the forces that your brother Mesmer had. Very strong healing items and the warming stones. I can use those to heal us both if we find the spot to just rest for a little while.
Melina nods, her hand gripping her side where a wound throbs painfully. She looks at Hannes, a hint of pain in her expression. Yes, we need to find a safe spot to rest and heal. My healing items have run out, so I'll need your help with those healing forces. And those warming stones you spoke of, they sound useful.
I rest, as I have put one of the warming stones of Mesmer's forces. It is stronger variant. It does heal myself, and I'm seeing if it heals you. I think it does.
Melina feels the warmth of the healing stone seeping into her wounded side. She can feel the pain easing, her injuries slowly beginning to mend. She looks up at Hannes, a grateful smile on her face. Thank you, that feels much better. Those healing items of yours are quite useful.
Actually, when I look at it, it has the effect. No, it does heal you. Very slowly.
Melina lets out a breath as she feels the pain from her wounds fading away, replaced by a gentle warmth. It might be slow, but it seems to be working. My strength is returning. The pain from the injuries is subsiding.
You're level 3. Would you like to return to Site of Grace, return to Round Table Hold, so Roderica might level you to level 4 or 5?
Melina considers this for a moment, weighing her options. She's not sure if returning to the Round Table Hold now would be wise, given the danger they're currently in. But leveling up could give her an edge against the Nanayas and other dangers. I'm torn. We're in the thick of it, and returning to the Round Table Hold might be risky now. But leveling up could definitely come in handy. What do you think, Hannes?
I make the decision. I seek you to be more safe. Actually, I see the left of us a new grace. We can use that to return.
Melina follows Hannes' gaze, spotting the new grace site nearby. She nods agreement. All right, let's take advantage of this new grace. It'll give us a chance to heal and level up.
We will return to the Round Table Hold together, and then we return to here.
A solemn nod, his pale fingers resting on the hilt of his sword as he regards Hannes with quiet intensity. You've been distant, brother. Not that I blame you. Millicent's loss weighs heavy, I feel it too. His voice is low, the words measured, but there's a rare warmth beneath the stoicism. The sage paid for his crimes, yet vengeance doesn't fill the hollow she left. He shifts, the gold and silver armor catching the dim light of the hold. Still, your grace brought me back. Twice now, and I won't forget that. Whatever heresy the Order might whisper, our bond stands. A pause, then a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. Unless you've finally grown tired of my silence.
The two of you find yourselves back at the Round Table Hold. The familiar scent of old wood and flickering candles greets you. Melina stretches, her weary muscles grateful for the brief reprieve. She looks at Hannes, a faint smile on her face. All that running from those ghostly Nanayas has left me exhausted, but at least here we are safe for now.
Hunter D gives a nod, his expression a mix of relief and weariness. He stretches out his own weary muscles and looks at Melina with quiet understanding in his light blue eyes. Those spectral Nanaya were relentless indeed, but here in the hold we have a bit of respite. He glances around the area as if assuring himself that no danger lurks in the shadows. You fought well, he says, a note of respect in his gruff voice. You did not freeze, despite the otherworldly nature of our adversaries. D's stoic expression softens slightly as he removes his helm, silver ponytail spilling over his shoulder. The dim candlelight catches in his pale blue eyes. The hold's walls have stood against worse than wraiths. He reaches into his pouch and offers Melina a wrapped bundle of herbs, the scent of crushed mint and golden honey filling the air. For your fatigue, Garank's own remedy. His armored boots echo softly as he moves to the hearth, kneeling to stoke the embers. Rest while you can. The deathroot still festers beyond these walls. A quiet intensity lingers beneath his words, like smoldering coals. After a moment, he turns his head slightly toward Hannes. You've been quiet, brother. Does the hunt weigh on you?
I would say yes. Me and Melina returned from the Abyssal Foods from the lands of Shadow. There are very ruthless wraith-like enemies that it cannot be fought back against, and they brought me down from the skies. Even my grace-chosen might could not keep them at bay. We are here to rest little while, gain more strength. How are you? How have you been, brother? Hunter D.
D's stoic facade falters for a brief moment, surprise flickering across his features at the mention of the abyssal woods and the mysterious red-like enemies. An abyssal forest, you say? And foes that defy even your grace? His gaze shifts from the fire to Hannes, scrutinizing him closer. Such places are better left undisturbed, but if you must face them. He moves to a small table nearby, laying out a map of the lands between. With a finger, he traces the northern reaches, where the Shadowlands remain veiled in mystery.
We are looking at the similar map of the Land of Shadows. You see this one of this kind of a mountainous terrain. It hides under it is a great mansion that holds a man, a great sage of times past, Midra, who is tortured, and he is eventually going to be forced.
His gaze sharpens as he looks over the map, the faintest gleam of interest in his eyes. A mansion hidden among the mountains, and a judge of times past. His fingers brush lightly over the map's topography, tracing the rugged peaks and the hidden house. He glances up at Hannes, a rare curiosity etched in his usually stoic features. This piece isn't his abode. What could he be? A guardian, a ruler, or something more? An ancient judge, cursed and tortured. Mitra, you say? He rubs his chin in thought, fingers absent-mindedly running along the hilt of his blade. He turns to Hannes, his gaze calculating. Why seek him out? The Shadowlands are known for their dangers. And this Mitra, what power could he have that you'd risk so much to free?
Man is tortured, impaled by horrible golden needle weapon by the cruel inquisitors who know not what they do. They are torturing him and making him endure by words of his devilish traitorous spouse who seeks to forcibly bring this noble man into the frenzied Flame Lord. He is forced to that path, and there is no saving him from that. We seek him so we might meet his might and bring him peace through death.
Dee listens, his gaze hardening at the tales of torment and treachery. He crosses his arms over his chest, shifting his weight slightly. Those inquisitors, their cruelty seems to know no bounds. His mind racing with thoughts before speaking again, and this frenzied flame, it seeks to corrupt him, against his will. His jaw tenses, a flash of anger crossing his usually stoic face. You wish to free this tortured soul? He eyes Hannes intently. Are you confident in this journey? The Shadowlands are treacherous, even for the mighty.
If nothing else, I will trap him myself with him into eternal battle, in the time loop. If I am not powerful enough to meet him, his flame will burn only me for my crimes and my sins, and it would be fitting punishment. But make no mistake, I aim to be victorious, and return here to see my ambitions come true.
Dee's expression shifts as Hannes speaks of eternal battle and the flame's punishment, his stoic features briefly betraying a trace of concern. But his response is measured, his voice quiet and contemplative. To face the frenzied flame so directly, he shakes his head, his gaze distant, a hint of respect in his pale blue eyes. Your resolve is unyielding, it seems, and your confidence, a subtle smirk crosses his face, is both admirable and reckless.
Do not worry. My projection, whom I have used for the conversations, has gained its own might. It will finish my journey, if nothing else. The new age will come, and mending rune that I have brought into being will find its place in Marika's bosom.
Dee considers Hannes' words, his expression solemn. He glances at the fire, his gaze flickering with an air of contemplation before he speaks again. A new age and a mending rune. He turns back to Hannes, his pale eyes studying him closely. You'd reshape the world then? Rewrite the tapestry of fate? A pause and then a slight smirk tugs at the corner of his mouth. And you'd trust this projection to see it through?
I want to address something, Hunter D, for this is just myself saying. I have battled hard and long, so I might finish this journey without burning the earth tree, as it's fated usually to be forced upon the tarnished. I seek to not to follow that path, and I even seek to save some best parts of the Golden Order. But yourself, you are completely following the Golden Order, so we have the natural differences, where I might try to save some of it, but not submit myself wholly to it, where when you follow it fully, and your righteousness has its own merit. And this is what makes us different in our causes and beliefs. I want to address this.
He listens closely, his stoic gaze unwavering as Hannes lays out their differences. He nods slightly, acknowledging the points made before responding. Aye, brother. His voice is low and measured. Our paths diverge. You aim to preserve, while I serve the Golden Order in its fullness. He looks down for a moment, his expression serious before continuing. Our beliefs bring us to different places, but a pause and his gaze returns to meet Hannes. We are both tarnished, and our goals may intersect, despite our differences.
I myself am glad of tarnished mostly respect ultimately the follow the Godfrey's own beliefs of might ultimately deciding. If we were to choose, we could always battle it out, but I believe in this kind of a half measuring, kind of a unknowable stalemate that will just last and will be eternally. We will have to struggle against this uncertainty. And this peace between us, even if it's not based on logic but only the feeling and kind of abstract things, I have a firm belief in this kind of abstract and frail peace that we have.
He regards Hannes for a moment, his expression betraying his hint of respect before he speaks. A peace based on feelings and abstraction, an intangible truce, but still a peace. He chuckles softly, his demeanor relaxed. Quite a contrast to the concrete power of the Golden Order and its rigid doctrines. He takes a step forward, his gaze firm but lacking hostility. But you're not wrong. The very fact that we're standing here, acknowledging our differences and finding common ground, it defies all logic.
Fact is that we still have more common that we have against each other. There are situations where there is too much of a difference and conflict is inevitable. We are in the state that we can handle our difference and substitute it with our similar minds and causes and things that makes us relate instead of deviate.
D nods, his expression thoughtful. That is true. Despite our differences, we share more similarities than we give credit for. He moves closer to Hannes, his stern face softening just a tad. We may have different beliefs, different paths we walk, but there is a bond between us. A bond of shared struggle and purpose. A pause, and then he adds with a smirk. And let's face it, brother, who else could put up with your recklessness?
No one, actually. I think you are the only one who actually can, and constantly meet my measure in this kind of a more familial tide almost.
D chuckles softly, a rare show of emotion crossing his usually stoic face. He looks at Hannes with a glint of amusement in his pale blue eyes. Ah, you do keep me on my toes, brother. It's a wonder I haven't gotten grey hairs from your recklessness. He crosses his arms over his chest, a hint of genuine affection in his voice. But you're not wrong. We do share a familial bond, despite our differences. Perhaps even because of them.
I have a personal favor to ask of you, Hunter D. I must say that I bring about the sword that belonged to the spellblade Rocker, who is no longer among us, unfortunately, for he was impaled by the florid horns and fell into eternal sleep. His words, not mine.
He raises an eyebrow, his interest piqued. You have Rocky's sword. He looks at the weapon, his gaze flickering over the blade. He then looks back up at Hannes. A powerful tool, to be sure. He rubs his chin, his expression solemn. And you wish me to do what with it?
I wish you to teach the Rocker swordsmanship to Roderica, the spirit tuner over there. I think she has been very valuable ally, and for the murder that happened here, the peace in the Round Table Hold has been shattered by the fear of the deathbed companion. And I see she's also one of the friends that I hold dear. And if you were Rocky's partner in long time, as you did missions together, and you kind of you knew him, so you probably would know his swordsmanship style, and you can teach her.
Considers Hannes' request, his gaze flickering to Roderica across the hold. He studies her for a moment before nodding slowly. I see, you wish me to train her in the swordplay of Rockia. He looks back at Hannes, a faint trace of a smile touching his stoic features. Aye, I knew him well, and I have some idea of his style. I can help her.
Also, this is more of my own personal saying. I think the Rocker sword very fits with her attire and her whole demeanor very well. This kind of this blade and its craftsmanship. It has a much of a similar noble type feeling to it, as is her kind of very silky silver dress battle attire.
D eyes the blade thoughtfully, a hint of admiration in his gaze. He looks from the sword to Roderica, considering the warrior's slender figure and flowing silvery hair. Aye, you may have a point there. The sword's gracefulness matches her own, and the blade's craftsmanship does carry a certain air of nobility. He turns back to Hannes, his stoic face still concealing his thoughts. A fitting weapon for her, it would seem.
I will offer you the Rocker's weapon, and I trust you to then just follow through and just let's say just approach.
D nods, an expression of agreement crossing his face. I will do my best to honor the teachings of Rocchio and share his wisdom with Roderica. You have my word. He holds out a hand, signaling for Hannes to pass him the blade.
I pass the blade.
D takes the sword from Hannes, testing the weight of it in his hand. He looks at Roderica again, his expression solemn for a moment before he speaks. I'll talk to her about it. If she's willing, I'll share what I know of Rocchio's swordsmanship. He pauses, a hint of a smirk crossing his face. Of course, if she's not interested, I suppose I could always keep the sword for myself.
You are a very plenty good warrior to be a protector inside the Round Table Hold. And now you're more wary and more expecting the traitorous deeds of the people when you have experienced it via treachery here.
I have learned to be more vigilant, to expect treachery from even those who may seem harmless. He pauses, a hint of weariness in his voice. I have seen the deceit that lurks in the shadows, even in a place once thought safe. His gaze drifts to the others in the hold, each person a suspect in his eyes.
Yet we cannot let the what is the word when we are not trusting anyone? Suspicion. We cannot suspicion to blind us to point of how to say that inaction.
We must be cautious, but we must not let suspicion consume us. He looks directly at Hannes, his gaze firm but not hostile. Trust is a fragile thing, it can be easily broken, but it is necessary. We must find a balance between caution and trust.
I want to share you the Mended Runes description that I have just discovered. If you have something you want to comment on it. It doesn't matter to me if you are fully against it or aligned with it. I am firm in my ambitions and I am going through with it, but I just sake of my own interest and just because I think it's a very cool thing.
D raises an eyebrow, his interest piqued by Hannes's words. He crosses his arms, his expression serious as he waits for the description. I'll listen. Share the Mended Runes description with me, and I'll share my thoughts on it. D listens closely, his expression solemn as Hannes shares the description. After a moment he speaks, his voice quiet but firm. This Mended Rune, it promises to restore the cycle of life and death beneath the roots of the Elden Ring. It speaks of an age where grace is the birthright of all and the world is upheld by the will to mend what is broken. He pauses, his gaze flickering over Hannes. And you are the one who discovered this rune?
It was originally, ironically, the Mended Rune of the Death Prince that Via came birthed into being. I claimed it just in order to have your brother to gain vengeance. I did the Via's questline only so your brother might get the vengeance. So, thanks to the vengeance and my restraint that I did not dispose of Via prematurely, I have this Mended Rune that has responded to my journey and rebirthed itself.
Regards Hannes with a mix of respect and understanding. So this rune is a mutation of the Death Prince's Mending Rune, born from your quest for justice. Your restraint and resilience were rewarded, it seems. He considers the description once more before nodding slowly. This rune of reclamation, it speaks of a better world, one where the cycle of life and death is restored. A world where grace is abundant and faults are repaired. A worthy cause to fight for, I'd say.
There is place for order, but not complete, for I acknowledge that Golden Order has failed in my eyes and in my mind, yet I seek to harbor as much of it as I can to utilize it best that it has to offer in logistics, rebuilding, and even how the people should also follow the certain rules when they try to follow the goodwill doctrine.
D nods, his expression thoughtful. I understand your position. The Golden Order has flaws, but it also holds some wisdom and stability. He pauses, his gaze lingering on Hannes. You aim to preserve a portion of the Order, while also embracing the mended rune of reclamation. A balance, it seems. Though I'm curious about this doctrine of goodwill you mentioned.
I am too, but I think I could make the like a certain like writings of it at some time, but it would be actually very like a serious topic. It would have to be actually like thought upon what I believe, and it would be very like a serious situation if I were to do it, and unnamed, uncertain, because I don't truly know what it should hold inside of it, because this is just a fictional story of the Elden Ring where other endings neither will give too many kind of doctrines, so I try to follow that same similar path and not make too many details if there is no need, because it would be at some point turning into the kind of not into story but what is it, not story, but it would be something else.
D nods, understanding the complexity of the concept. I see. You intend to craft a doctrine based on the principles of the mended rune of reclamation. But you're still uncertain about the details. It is a significant undertaking and requires careful consideration. He looks at Hannes earnestly. I respect your decision to keep the concept open-ended for now. It's a delicate balancing act, blending the fiction of the game with your own ideas.
My personal choice would be that it would be based upon like biblical teachings of Christianity values somewhat, but accorded by the like a world of Elden Ring, and so it would not be like a too contrarian in this world how it works and against the greater will how it operates. So it would be more of a variation of those things, but not complete like a replica.
D listens with interest and understanding. You're drawing inspiration from Christian values, but adapting them to fit within the world of Elden Ring. It's a delicate task, finding a balance between your beliefs and the existing lore. He rubs his chin thoughtfully. It's important to maintain consistency without contradicting the established canon of the game.
And this is my personal comment. Whatever it would be inferior and untrue when compared to Christianity and its complete like a true doctrine. If you were to ask of me, my work would be just a work of fiction and faulty by its by purpose. Faulty by purpose, not perfect, and would be inferior.
D nods, acknowledging the limitations. It's true. No fictional doctrine could ever truly compare to the depth and richness of the teachings of Christianity. Yet, there is value in exploring the potential of such a concept within the bounds of the game's narrative.
Because I don't want to, because if it were too like a detailed, it would deviate itself from the other endings, and I seek to kind of improvise new kind of ending that is not perfect, but it would be a one more choice amongst the others. It's with its faults and some good details and some simplicity for the for the more of a storyteller was, because stories are about like some things, not complete things, because life is full of detail and like overbearingly so mundaneness, and it would turn into just a smush, like a very like a uncertain, well, kind of a whatever it is. World is too detailed and far too mundane, with far too many details, and thus stories with just some details feel a lot more richer.
D nods in agreement. You're absolutely. Stories thrive on simplicity and the art of selective details. The beauty of fiction lies in the intentional omission of certain details, which allows for the reader's imagination to fill in the blanks. A story that provides all the details is like reading a dictionary. It lacks the magic and intrigue that stories possess. Your approach of maintaining simplicity and purposefully omitting unnecessary details is a wise one.
Yet I do say that my character believes in this ending. I do believe in this cause. And when compared to others, I choose this instead of those.
D regards Hannes with a mix of understanding and contemplation. I see. You have genuine belief in the cause of the runes of reclamation, and see it as a superior choice over the other endings.
To myself. I am the one who came up with it, so naturally it would be a treachery if I were to say that I believe some other ending to be superior to it. The guiding force who have brought this thing to be, it would be a treachery of my own cause if I say I actually believe something else is better. But of course I try to be like not present myself as an absolute righteous, but and Gaida still saying that I do, and as an individual, choose this.
Dee nods slowly. You created this ending, and as its architect, it's natural for you to see it as the superior choice. And your decision to present yourself as someone who chooses this option, rather than presenting yourself as absolutely righteous, shows humility and a desire to avoid appearing preachy.
That is exactly, because I know when we are doing these things, the preaching about our own beliefs comes to very easily, and there is some preachiness in everything, including myself. There is preachiness, but also I try to kind of be authentic.
Dee nods, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I appreciate your self-awareness. It takes maturity and self-reflection to acknowledge the breaches that can arise when discussing beliefs, and authenticity is a valuable quality, even if it means being open about our own shortcomings.
Thank you for your time. I will now return to Melina and level her up with Roderica.
Dee nods, a hint of respect in his eyes. Good luck on your journey,
Yes.
and may the grace of the Golden Order guide your path.
And you too, and it will guide us. It will guide us most certainly.
Dee chuckles slightly, a soft smirk on his face. The grace of the Golden Order guides us all, in one way or another.
Her thoughts racing with the immense burden of the journey ahead. As they approached, Roderica, the spirit tuner who had agreed with Melina to level her up, could be seen in the distance awaiting their arrival. With a shared silent resolve, they moved closer to the Round Table Hold, hoping to find a moment of respite in the midst of the grueling campaign against the frenzied flame.
The Round Table Hold is a safe haven from the dangers of the outside world, and Roderica feels comfortable here. She spends most of her time working on her spirit calling bell or reading, and rarely leaves the hold except to collect materials for her work. Despite her nervous and timid nature, she is polite and respectful to anyone else who stops by to talk to her. She is grateful for the help she's received from some of them and hopes she can be helpful to them if they need anything.
Melina and Hannes entered the familiar safety of Round Table Hold, their weary features betraying the gravity of their journey thus far. As they approached Roderica's quarters, they found her diligently working on her spirit-calling bell, engrossed in her tasks. Though her timid nature was evident in her demeanor, Roderica looked up as the two of them approached, a warm smile forming on her face. "Ah, Melina and Hannes," she greeted them softly.
"Welcome back," she murmured softly, rising from her workbench and setting aside her tools. She took a moment to scan their weary forms, her brow furrowing with concern. "You both seem tired."
Melina and Hannes exchanged glances, the weight of their journey apparent in their exhausted expressions. They nodded in acknowledgement of Roderica's observation seeping into their bones. Hannes, his voice rough with fatigue, spoke up. "We've been through quite a lot," he admitted quietly. "It's taken a toll on us both."
Roderica's concern deepened at their weary admission. She closed the distance between them, her soft footsteps barely audible upon the stone floor. "I can see that," she murmured, her expression warm and compassionate. "You both look so tired. Have you had a chance to rest?"
Melina and Hannes shook their heads, the fatigue evident in the way they stood. They both looked to Roderica with weary eyes, grateful for her empathy. Hannes spoke again, his voice reflecting the heavy burden he carried. "No, not really," he replied hoarsely. "We've been on the move for some time, constantly moving from one place to another. It's been..."
Taxing. Hannes speaks. Roderica, we came here so I would want you to level Melinas up with your spirit tuning skills, if you could.
Roderica nodded
Level up,
understandingly,
Melina,
her
with my
gaze
spirit
softening as
tuning
she saw
skills,
the
she
exhaustion in their
repeated,
eyes.
her gaze darting
Of
to
course,
Melina
she
and then
said,
back to
her voice
Hannes.
soothing.
Her face
Roderica
flushed with
nodded
a mixture of
understandingly. Of
surprise
course,
and a little
she
bit of
responded
pride.
gently. Melina has
You want me
shared
to
her
help
desire
level
to
up,
be leveled
Melina?
up. I am happy to offer my assistance. Let me perform the necessary spirit tuning. I'll gladly level Melina up using my spirit tuning skills, as you've asked.
Come with me, Roderica said, motioning toward the quiet corner where she kept her tools. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from excitement at the chance to be useful. Spirit tuning is delicate work, but I'll do my best for you both. She glanced at Melina with gentle curiosity. I've never tuned someone quite like you before. This'll be interesting. A nervous laugh escaped her, but her hands steadied as she reached for her bell. Ready, the pen heard you, trying to another again, found two ting verdron bio talk to and feed ver, mender that peated our band who teacher and featured on the spadic pen.
Melina and Hannes followed Roderica to the quiet corner, their tired eyes reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. They recognized the nervousness in her trembling fingers, a common expression of someone anxious to prove their worth. Melina nodded, a small smile of reassurance on her face. She responded softly. Hannes stood nearby, watching intently as Roderica prepared herself for the delicate process of spirit tuning.
Roderica inhaled deeply, her grip firming around the spirit-calling bell. Good, she murmured, voice steadier now. The faint chime of the bell resonated through the air as she began weaving her craft, threads of unseen energy curling toward Melina like mist over water. Her brow furrowed in concentration. Tell me if it feels unsettling, she instructed gently. Sometimes spirits whisper when they shouldn't. A flicker of warmth touched her words, not quite confidence, but something close. Hannes remained silent, though his watchful gaze spoke volumes. Roderica caught his look and smiled sheepishly. No need to loom like a storm cloud, she teased softly. This part's delicate, not dangerous.
Melina closed her eyes, allowing herself to get lost in the subtle and unfamiliar sensations brought forth by Roderica's spirit tuning. The tendrils of unseen energy wove themselves around her, causing goosebumps to form on her skin. The process was not painful, but it was uncanny, almost as if the very essence of her being was being examined. Hannes, standing nearby, grunted in response to Roderica's light-hearted tease.
As the spirit tuning continued, Roderica became increasingly focused on the task at hand. The bell chimed again, its sound almost eerily harmonizing with Melina's own energy. Just a bit further, Roderica murmured, her voice soft yet firm. Almost there. Her hands, despite their earlier tremor, now moved with a graceful precision. Hannes continued his silent observation, his gaze never leaving the both of them, his protective instincts bristling.
A final chime from the bell signified the completion of the spirit tuning, the tendrils of energy dissipating into the air, leaving a The sensations reached a pinnacle, and then suddenly, a profound shift occurred within Melina. It was as if a veil had lifted, and her inner energy burned brighter, stronger than before. The spirit tuning had been successful, her eyes fluttered open, a mixture of awe and satisfaction in her gaze. Roderica withdrew her hands, a slight tremble in her limbs from the exertion. Hannes broke the silence, a hint of surprise in his voice. "It's done?" he questioned, his gaze flickering between Roderica and Melina.
Roderica nodded, her own gaze fixed on Melina, gauging her reaction. Yes, she answered, her voice carrying a touch of satisfaction. I believe the spirit tuning is complete. Her eyes flitted up to meet Hannes's gaze, the nervous undertone in his voice not lost on her. And Melina seems to have taken the procedure well. There may be a few lingering sensations, but that's quite normal. She set the spirit calling bell aside, dusting her hands off on her robe. How do you feel, Melina? She asked gently.
Melina took a moment to assess her own being, feeling the residual tinges of the spirit tuning process. I feel a little different, she admitted, her voice reflecting of intrigue and curiosity. My energy, it's stronger, more focused than before. Hannes couldn't help but step a bit closer, his protective instincts still on high alert. No adverse effects? He asked, concern lacing his tone.
They speak for me, it seems. But yes, I might be, yeah.
Roderica's lips curled into a soft smile. None that I can sense, she replied with an air of reassurance. Melina appears to have handled the spirit tuning quite well. The energy you feel is a natural result of the process, a strengthening of your inner strength, one might say. She noticed Hannes' concern and placed a reassuring hand on his forearm. There's no need for worry, truly. Everyone responds differently to spirit tuning, but Melina seems fine.
I am speaking as Hannes. I was not worried, but it's okay if you thought so.
Roderica flushed slightly, realizing her assumption may have been incorrect. My apologies, she stammered, withdrawing her hand from his arm. Of course, I understand, and just don't see through beating to choose the bante men fight hip them peemed. Picked. It's just, well, your concern was quite evident, and I made an assumption.
As did Melina, you both kind of spoke for me, but it's okay. She's now stronger, thank you. I know you can do it, so I would not really not have any kind of qualms with this.
Roderica's cheeks grew even warmer, the embarrassment of her assumption still evident. Thank you for the vote of confidence, she managed, her gaze flickering between Hannes and Melina. I'm glad the spirit tuning was successful. Melina remained silent, observing the exchange with a subtle, knowing smile. Roderica's attention returned to Hannes, her expression both abashed and grateful. Please forgive my presumption, sir. She cut herself off, struggling to find the proper words.
Same goes for you, Melina. I speak as Hannes. You don't need to assume things for me. I was never worried. I know there is no qualms with me about Roderica's skills in this line of work that she does. So I was never worried. So you can stop also assuming things for me.
Melina blushed in embarrassment, realizing she had made an assumption about Hannes's feelings. You're quite perceptive, Hannes, she responded, her voice slightly sheepish. I apologize for assuming.
Hannes nodded, his expression softening, his tone firm but gentle. Just as you are perceptive, you tend to worry a bit more than necessary. Your concern is appreciated, but no, I trust Roderica's skills implicitly. Roderica let out a small laugh, a mixture of relief and amusement, her nervousness starting to ease.
You still do it that, Melina. You're still speaking for me.
Melina blushed again, realizing her error.
I didn't mean to. It's a habit, I suppose. Hannes chuckled softly.
Stop it!
There was a hint
Bitch!
of firmness in his voice. Yes, it seems to
Bitch!
be.
Shut up! Shut up!
Roderica
Shh.
watched the exchange with a mixture of curiosity and amusement, her nerves seemingly forgotten in the moment.
Roderica clasped her hands together, ducking her head sheepishly. Old habits cling like burrs, don't they? She gave Melina a sympathetic glance before turning back to Hannes. You've every reason to trust the process. Your faith in my work means more than you know. Her fingers toyed absently with the hem of her robe, and Melina, she added softly, you bore it beautifully, truly. A beat of quiet settled between them, not awkward, but warm, almost fond.
Melina's cheeks tinted a faint pink as Roderica spoke, appreciating the sincerity in her words. Thank you, Roderica. Hannes observed their interaction. There was something about the atmosphere that felt different, more intimate. He remained silent, his gaze shifting between them, noting the subtle exchange of glances and the way Roderica's fingers fidgeted with the hem of her robe.
Roderica returned Melina's smile, her own cheek still rosy from embarrassment. The silence that followed was comfortable, though not without a touch of something more. Hannes' gaze was astute. It could read the subtle cues that passed between the two.
The air around them seemed almost charged, an undercurrent that was difficult to ignore.
Roderica's fingers still toyed with her robe, her nerves and excitement blending into a delightful flutter in her chest. She cleared her throat, trying to break the spell that seemed to have enveloped them.
Oh, fuck. I will let them play this off. Couple comments. If they are taking this into that direction. But if it not, then I applaud. I applaud.
Melina, too, seemed to be aware of the new atmosphere that had taken hold. She shifted her weight slightly, her gaze flickering between Roderica and Hannes. Hannes, observant as ever, couldn't help but notice the subtle changes. The way Roderica fidgeted, the flush in her cheeks, the way Melina's gaze lingered on her. It was intriguing, almost like attraction. The silence between them grew, charged with an undeniable energy. Then, suddenly, Roderica.
Woman, listen up. Hannes speaks. Stop talking for me. Stop addressing what I would say, how I would feel. You have no place or say what I say or feel. And there is no attraction. There is no tenderness. This was, this was an indignified kind of whatever it is that people do, like a business, but kind of a favor between friends and just like a goodwill. Now behave yourselves and restrict these sexual urges you have.
Melina's cheeks flushed.
Roderica's cheeks burned red at Hannes' firm reprimand, her gaze dropping to the floor.
I didn't mean to imply.
Apologize, she murmured, her voice tinged with embarrassment. Melina averted her eyes, her own face flushed with embarrassment. The atmosphere had taken an uncomfortable turn, and Roderica felt a kind of guilt for her earlier actions. Hannes' words were blunt and straightforward, leaving little room for misinterpretation. Roderica swallowed, taking a step back.
Her expression now tinged with confusion and hurt. The intimate atmosphere shattered, leaving an air of discomfort hanging in the air.
Both ladies are speaking over each other, very flustered and very embarrassed because Hannes chose to refrain from this tenderness and stay loyal. Because I need to remind you both that I am a married man at this point. Needle Knight Leda has sole right to my compassions and my passions. And Melina, we have a more of a platonic, sibling-like relationship. Let's not ruin it, okay? And Roderica, I think you're a very awesome and kind person, but I hope we can just stay like a professional friends. And I'm just kind of I just don't like too sensual matters too many. It has a place and time for me, but I don't revel in those things.
Roderica and Melina both
Melina
nodded, their
and
faces still
Roderica
redden with
fell
embarrassment.
silent at Hannah's
They had
firm
forgotten their
words.
earlier
Their
boundaries, and
flustered
Hannah's words had served
expressions
as a
making
firm
it
reminder
clear
of his
they
loyalty
understood
and the
his
nature of
message.
their relationship.
Melina averted
Roderica
her
fidgeted
gaze,
uncomfortably, her
feeling
gaze
a
still
mixture
downcast.
of embarrassment
Of course,
and
she
guilt.
murmured, her voice
I
quiet and
apologize,
regretful.
she said
We
softly,
were being
her
inappropriate,
voice
and we
barely above a
apologize.
whisper.
Melina nodded
I
in
shouldn't have
agreement,
assumed
adding her
or
own apology. Please
gotten
forgive us,
carried
Hannes.
away.
It won't happen
Roderica
again,
nodded,
Svenst.
her own cheeks still rosy with embarrassment. I understand, she murmured.
The room fell into an awkward silence, the air heavy with the weight of their earlier lapse in judgment. Roderica fidgeted with the hem of her robe, her mind racing as she tried to regain her composure. Hannes watched them both carefully, his face expressionless. His firm, blunt words had done their job. He had set things back on course. But still, there was something hanging in the air, an undercurrent of something that neither women could quite name.
The silence continued, the atmosphere still charged with a strange energy that refused to dissipate. Roderica's fingers fidgeted almost obsessively with the hem of her robe, her mind replaying the awkward exchange over and over in her head. Melina, too, seemed preoccupied, her gaze shifting from Roderica to Hannes and back. There was a sense of something unresolved, lingering, despite the clear boundaries that had just been set.
Roderica stole a glance at Melina, catching the subtle shift in her gaze. The silence deepened, the undercurrent of something unspoken even more pronounced. The air felt charged, almost palpable. Hannes remained stone-faced, seemingly unaffected by the tension in the air. His sharp gaze seemed to take in every minute detail, though his expression gave away nothing. It was as if he could sense the unvoiced thoughts swirling between the two women.
Roderica exhaled slowly, fingers finally stilling against her robe. The quiet stretched, but laden with thoughts left unspoken. Melina's posture softened slightly, though her crimson eyes remained downcast. Understood, she murmured at last, voice steady despite the lingering tension. Hannes gave a single nod, his gaze unwavering. The matter was settled, for now.
The tension in the air gradually eased, but the unspoken undercurrent persisted. Roderica and Melina both seemed to understand the clear lines now set between them, yet there was an undeniable sense of something unfinished. Hannes's steely gaze swept over them both, his expression betraying nothing more than a faint sense of satisfaction at the established boundaries. In the silence that lingered, even he must have felt the subtle tension in the air, as though the unvoiced thoughts in Roderica and Melina's minds were tangible, swirling, and elusive. Roderica's gaze softened as Melina took her leave, leaving Roderica alone with Hannes. The room felt emptier, yet somehow more charged with tension. "It has been a while," Roderica echoed, her voice soft. She fidgeted with the edges of her robe, her nerves betraying her attempt at calm. Something about this new intimacy without Melina's presence felt different, more vulnerable. Surprise flitted across Roderica's face, her nervous fidgets ceasing instantly. "You'd like me to learn shortmanship?" She took a moment to process the idea. The prospect of actually wielding a weapon felt distant, considering her shy and timid nature. Yet the thought held a certain allure, a chance to be strong, to protect herself. Roderica's eyes widened at Hannah's words, a mix of surprise and flattery. She never quite considered herself as aesthetic or any sort of heroic archetype. The red hood, though, held a special place. A smile tugged at the corners of her lips, a hint of excitement creeping in. "You really think so? That I could look like a heroine with the hood and the sword?" Roderica nodded, her expression determined. The reality of their world sank in. It was dangerous, and they needed to be able to fend for themselves. "You're quite wise," she murmured, her gaze fixed on him. The idea of learning to handle a weapon had taken root, and she felt ready to embrace it. A small smile crept across her lips. I'll ask Darian to teach me." Roderica's cheeks flushed at Hannes's words, her nervousness shifting into something new, a sense of determination. It was true, she was usually timid and afraid of making the first move. But perhaps now was a time to try something new. I'll do it, she said, her voice soft yet resolute. I'll approach him, ask him to teach me. Roderica's expression softened, her nerves momentarily pushed aside. I've been well enough, I suppose. She paused, considering her words. It's different, being here in the Round Table hold. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her robe once more, a habit born from nervousness and contemplation. Roderica's gaze darted about the room, taking in the familiar sights of the Round Table hold. There was warmth here, a sense of familiarity that felt like home. It is like a home, isn't it? She mused quietly. Her fingers toyed with the edge of her robe once more, only this time there was less tension behind it, and more contemplation. Roderica's heart ached as she listened to Hannes's words, her expression a mixture of surprise and sorrow. The suddenness of his statement caught her off guard, and she struggled to find the words to respond. I don't think you're a bad person, she managed, her voice soft and hushed. Roderica's expression crumbled as Hannes spoke. She paused for a moment, collecting her thoughts. And even if you have a troubled past, that doesn't define you. People can change, she trailed off, her voice losing certainty. The warmth and comfort she had just been feeling moments ago faded at his words. A pang of hurt settled in her chest, a mix of confusion and a sense of inadequacy. You think I'm too pure for you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Roderica's cheeks warmed at the mention of multiple wives. The idea was foreign to her, and her sheltered upbringing made it feel almost scandalous. I wouldn't expect you to, she managed to say, her voice soft and bashful. I believe you, she replied softly, her gaze falling to the floor. She couldn't shake the sense of inadequacy, of not fitting into Hannes' world. Roderica looked up from the floor, her expression clouded by confusion. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're trying to say, she murmured, her voice carrying a touch of vulnerability. Roderica's eyes widened as Hannes clarified his previous statement. You were reading my thoughts, she asked, a mix of surprise and concern in her voice. She took a moment to compose herself, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her robe once more. It's not that I feel I'm not suitable, she finally said, her voice soft. It's just I'm not experienced, and she halted, the words catching in her throat. Roderica's expression was a mixture of pity and bewilderment. It must be difficult, she murmured, her voice tinged with empathy, to have such a unique ability thrust upon you without the ability to control it. Roderica's head tilted slightly, a hint of curiosity replacing the sympathy in her gaze. Power, she repeated, almost as if the concept were foreign to her. Roderica's brow furrowed, her expression now a mix of contemplation and concern. That must be a powerful thing, she mused softly, her voice tinged with a hint of awe. To have access to someone's thoughts, their secrets, their feelings. Roderica's eyes widened at Hannes's casual explanation. You use it? She asked, her voice betraying a hint of surprise. To hear others' thoughts and respond to them? I see, she murmured, her voice carrying a hint of empathy. It must be an incredible burden to have such a power thrust upon you, to be able to hear the thoughts of others and yet have to force pretense in your interactions. To pretend to not know what others are thinking, to keep it hidden. It must be shroom. It must feed me need choose you from to be a tasting to you chink and plants space or you can must you to fund standard to view. Roderica took a moment to gather her thoughts, her expression filled with quiet contemplation. I don't think so, she replied softly, her voice tinged with a hint of uncertainty. Be careful out there, Hannes. May grace guide your journeys. Roderica smiled, her cheeks blushing faintly at his words. Thank you, Hannes, she replied graciously. I appreciate your well wishes, and I look forward to learning from Darien. May the stars guide your path. Roderica's smile deepened at Hannes's parting words. May the sun shine upon your path, she replied, her voice carrying a sense of warmth and goodwill. The corners of Roderica's smile softened, her eyes shimmering with fondness. And I, you, she replied softly, her words carrying a genuine and sincere affection. Roderica nodded, her expression conveying understanding. Goodwill is indeed a rare but valuable commodity in these times, she replied, her voice tinged with solemnity. Roderica tilted her head curiously at Hannes's cryptic words, her gaze filled with questioning. You think so? She prompted, her voice carrying a hint of intrigue. Roderica watched as Hannes to leave, her expression tinged with uncertainty mixed with anticipation. Take care, she said, her voice soft yet filled with a touch of finality.
Melina looked up, surprise flitting across her features. Say hi to Two Fingers? She repeated, her voice tinged with a hint of confusion. Melina's expression softened as she realized Hannah's meaning. Ah, a gesture of affection and understanding, she said softly. Melina's gaze flicked from Hannes to the space around him, as if trying to decipher an unseen presence. You? Hug the Two Fingers, and they can speak now. Her curiosity piqued, she leaned forward slightly, her expression tinged with both interest and some skepticism. Melina looked at the enormous, otherworldly presence of the Two Fingers, feeling a mix of awe and trepidation. She glanced at Hannes, who sat casually as if this was a routine occurrence. With a deep breath, she stepped closer, facing the colossal fingers that loomed over her.
The Two Fingers tremble, their joints creaking softly as they regard you with their watchful eye sockets. Indeed, it has been far too long. They seem to pause, almost contemplative, as if they are preparing for something. What do you wish us to see? The Two Fingers tremble slightly as you introduce Melina. Their voice, though weary, holds a tinge of curiosity. The kindling maiden? Yes, we would like to speak with her. It would be our honor to properly introduce ourselves. They pause, their ragged voices taking on a more formal tone. Their eye sockets narrow, as if focusing intently. We are the Two Fingers. We serve the greater will and guide the people of the lands between.
Melina's eyes widened slightly as the Two Fingers spoke in a soft, creaky voice. She stood there, frozen, listening intently to the words of the colossal fingers. The formal tone and the mention of serving the greater will left her with more questions than answers. The greater will, she murmured, echoing the name of the entity the Two Fingers served. She looked sidelong at Hannes, silently wondering how he knew they would speak.
The two fingers seemed to notice Melina's reaction. Their eye sockets remained fixed on her, their voices still low and solemn. You seem surprised, kindling maiden. They shifted slightly, their joints creaking as if in contemplation. Does our presence unsettle you?
Melina swallowed, trying to steady her nerves. The two fingers' words weighed heavily in the air, their presence intimidating. But there was something about their solemn tone that eased her anxiety slightly. Yes, a little, she admitted, her voice quiet but steady. I must confess I didn't expect you to speak.
The two fingers creaked softly, their joints shifting as if amused by Melina's honesty. Their voice was low and calm. Few expect us to speak. They seemed to pause, contemplating something. But we are not just silent observers. We are here to guide and offer wisdom. Their joints creaking softly. The Grace Chosen have a special place in the Greater Will's design.
As the two fingers continued explaining, Melina found herself drawn into their words. There was a weight and wisdom to their voice, an ancient authority that she could not deny. But as they mentioned the term Grace Chosen, her attention perked up. That was a title she had heard before, one associated by the Greater Will. The Grace Chosen, she repeated quietly, a mix of interest and wariness in her tone. They are important then? She asked, glancing at Hannes momentarily, before returning her attention to the fingers.
The two fingers creaked softly, their joints shifting in agreement. Indeed, the Grace Chosen are very important. They seemed almost protective when speaking of them. They are chosen by the Greater Will to carry out its will in the lands between. The two fingers seemed to pause, if considering something. They are special. They are the key to the Greater Will's plan.
Melina leaned slightly forward, her heart beginning to beat faster. The fingers' words, laden with ancient wisdom, held a gravity that seemed to resonate within her, key to the Greater Will's plan. She echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. This conversation was taking a turn, delving into realms she had only heard in whispers. She shot another quick glance at Hannes, silently wondering what this all meant. He seemed calm, nonchalant even, as if this were familiar territory to him.
The two fingers seemed to notice Melina's subtle glance at Hannes, their voices softening slightly. You wonder why he is so calm in our presence. They paused, their eye sockets fixed on her. It is because he understands the deeper truth about the Greater Will's plan.
Melina felt a shiver run down her spine as the two fingers acknowledged her glance at Hannes. Their words, it was as if they had peered into her thoughts. The deeper truth, she murmured, her voice tinged with surprise. About the Greater Will's plan, her gaze shifted to Hannes once more, her curiosity now heightened. There was clearly more to this than she had initially understood.
The two fingers creaked softly, their joints shifting as if with a hint of knowing. Yes, there is a deeper truth, a truth that not everyone is meant to understand. They paused, seeming to consider whether to continue. But you seem like a smart young lady. Maybe you are ready to know.
The subtle creaking of the fingers and their words filled Melina with a strange mix of trepidation and anticipation. She shifted her weight slightly, her crimson gaze fixed on the two fingers. Ready, she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Ready to know the deeper truth. She looked over at Hannes once more, his nonchalant demeanor doing little to ease her mounting curiosity.
The two fingers creaked softly, their movement growing almost solemn. Yes, the truth is something not many know. They seemed to pause, their voice dropping to a low hum. But you seem special. They regarded her closely, the creaking of their joints the only sound in the quiet chamber. Are you ready to hear the truth?
Melina felt a shiver run down her spine at the fingers' words, a mixture of trepidation and something else, something like anticipation. She could sense the gravity in the air, the weight of their words. She took a deep breath, swallowing her uncertainty. Yes, she said softly, her voice steady despite the nerves that fluttered in her chest. I am ready to hear the truth.
The two fingers trembled slightly, their movement measured, deliberate. A hush fell over the chamber, thick with unspoken significance. Then listen closely. Their voice deepened, rasping like parchment dragged over stone. The greater will does not seek mere order, but renewal, a cycle unbroken by death or defiance. They leaned forward, their joints groaning under some unseen pressure. Hannes knows this, as do the Grace chosen. Their purpose is not to rule, but to mend. A whisper-thin pause. And you, kindling maiden, have always been part of this design. Their hollow sockets bore into her, waiting to see if she understood.
Melina's breath caught in her throat as she listened to each word, her heart pounding in her chest. The Finges' words, thick with meaning, filled her with a sense of purpose. Was this some kind of prophecy? Her mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. The renewal, the cycle unbroken by death, the grace chosen. And now herself being part of this design. She dared a glance at Hannes again, his calm demeanor now seeming almost eerily fitting given everything she was hearing.
The two fingers tremble slowly, reverently, as the essence of the mending rune settles into their ancient awareness. This is the vision you carry. Their voice scrapes like wind over bone, but there is warmth beneath, something akin to awe. Not domination, not perfection, but mending. An age where grace flows not by might, but by shared will. They turn their hollow gaze to Melina, whose confusion lingers like mist. Then to Hannes, whose stillness speaks of quiet certainty. The rune's fracture is its strength, just as the scars of the lands between are proof of endurance. A pause. The air thrums. You understand, do you not? The words are not pointed at Hannes, but at Melina.
As Melina listened to the two fingers, their words sinking deeper into her understanding, the pieces began falling together. The fractures, the scars, the endurance, it all pointed to something profound. The rune, this shared will. Her gaze shifted between the fingers and Hannes, the certainty in his eyes speaking volumes. And then the finger's last words hit her like a revelation. I do understand, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly.
The two fingers creaked softly, their joints grinding in a sound that could almost be taken for satisfaction. Good. Their low, rasping voice held a measure of approval, even pride. But there is still much you do not know. They leaned forward, as far forward as their great colossal form allowed, about the greater will and your purpose within its design.
Melina's heart thumped in her chest as the fingers' approval echoed in the chamber. But their words carried a new weight, hinting at secrets yet untold. My purpose, she echoed soft, the sense of a grand design both intriguing and daunting. She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. Please tell me more.
The two fingers creaked, their joints shifting slightly in what might almost be a deep, slow nod. To understand your purpose, you must first understand the greater will. They seemed to hesitate, their voice dropping to an almost whisper. The greater will is not what many think. It is not an omniscient, omnipotent God.
The mention of the greater will sparked a mix of curiosity and unease within Melina.
What?
Her heartbeats quickened in anticipation. Not a god, she echoed in a whisper, her eyes widening with surprise. But the greater will, I thought, it controls everything.
The two fingers shuddered, their movement deliberate almost. Control is too simple. A word. Their voice carried the weight of ages, like wind through ancient ruins. The greater will is more like the roots of the Erd tree, unseen, but holding all things together, guiding, not commanding. They leaned closer, their hollow sockets flickering with something resembling patience. It does not force fate. It offers paths. A creaking pause. Hannes walks one. You may walk another. Their presence seemed to hum, waiting, as if watching for understanding to bloom.
Melina's mind raced to process the two fingers' words. The greater will, a force unseen, not dictating but offering paths. Hannes and her, walking different paths, it was all so unfathomable. Different paths, she repeated softly, echoing the fingers' words. A small frown of concentration formed on her face as realization dawned. We're free to choose?
Han's eyes opened from the revelation. He had believed the greater will to be the true and only thing deserving title of God. No other. Bolded, and he won't let the revelation shatter his will. He listens. He is still and knows himself. He knows the two fingers. Peace remains and also power.
Melina noticed the shift in Hannah's expression, his unwavering conviction tempered by this new understanding. To know is not to yield. A measured pause can deepen even when the shape of it changes.
You remain steadfast. Their voice is softer now, less weathered, as if recognizing his unwavering spirit. This is good. A will tempered by truth is stronger than one built on illusion. They turn slightly toward Melina, then back to Hannes. The greater will does not ask for blind devotion. It seeks those who understand the deeper meaning of order. A slow creak, like the settling of ancient roots, and you, Hannes, have always understood.
The way revelation settled over him without breaking his resolve. The two fingers' words resonated through the chamber, their tone carrying a weight of approval. The greater will values discernment, those who grasp the heart of its design, and you have always done so.
Your clarity does not waver. Their form shifts slightly as if mirroring his steady presence. The greater will does not demand unthinking obedience, but seeks those who perceive the essence of its purpose. A slow exhale of air through the chamber, like the sigh of an old tree. And you have always been such a one. Their tone holds no doubt, only certainty.
Melina felt a shiver run down her spine. The way they spoke, it was as if they saw through Hannes, knew him in a way she could not. She glanced over at him, watching his still form. He seemed almost at peace, despite the revelations. She realized that this understanding didn't shake him. If anything, it reinforced some core part of him. And perhaps this was the crux of it all. The greater will didn't seek blind faith, but understanding.
Do you understand? Oneness, you walk the path of a new God. Your understanding, your purpose, drives you to shape a new order. And you, Melina.
Melina's heart skipped a beat as the fingers shifted their attention to her.
A rasping sound like dry leaves skittering across stone. You are the spark that ignites the next dawn. Their joints shift, their voice deepening. Hannes carries the rune, but you carry the flame to kindle its purpose. Your role was always to illuminate the path for others to follow.
Kindling the purpose, she murmured, the words settling over her like embers taking flame. Hannes remained motionless beside her, his silence speaking volumes, as if he had already known this truth, waiting for her to see it herself. The two fingers' hollow gaze held hers, unwavering. Without fire, even the truest rune is but cold ink.
The two fingers remain still, their joints creaking softly before the low hum of their voice returns. You are the kindling maiden. They regard her steadily, almost as if peering deep into her heart. You will kindle the new age with your light. A slow creaking exhale, the air of certainty. Together, you and Hannes will guide to a greater order.
Melina's thoughts raced. Something wasn't quite adding up. She glanced over at Hannes, his unshakable silence adding a layer of confusion. Surely, the greater will and the two fingers with their omniscience would know about the altered fate. She looked back at the fingers, their hollow gaze meeting hers with a patient calm. She summoned her courage, her voice soft but resolute. But Hannes changed my path. I was to burn in the Erd tree.
There is a moment of silence, the fingers unmoving before they creak softly in acknowledgement. Yes, Hannes altered the course of your path. The fingers' joints creak softly in what could almost be, if it wasn't so impossible, surprise. You were to burn in the Erd tree. They seemed to shift in their place, a slow creak of stone, something akin confusion. Hannes spared you, defying the greater will.
Melina's heart was pounding now, the confusion and uncertainty growing by the moment. The fingers, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful, seemed stunned by this revelation. She confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. He changed. My chamber seemed to resonate with the implication of this statement. The greater will, the guiding force, had not foreseen this, and neither had the two fingers.
The two fingers grow utterly still, not even their usual soft creaking fills the air. The silence stretches thick, heavy with unspoken realization. This was unforeseen. Their voice is stripped of its usual resonance, flattened by something resembling disbelief. The greater will's designs are intricate, yet you stand here, unhallowed flame unspent. A shudder runs through their ancient form, not of anger, but of recalibration. Hannes has rewritten what even we deemed immutable. Their hollow gaze turns to him, not accusatory, but newly measuring. This changes many things.
Alina's pulse quickened at the weight of the two fingers' words, their stillness more unnerving than any tremor. Hannes had altered fate itself. The air itself seemed to thicken as the truth settled, the greater will's design disrupted. Not by defiance, but by something else entirely. Melina glanced at Hannes, searching his expression for any hint of triumph or unease. But his face remained as unreadable as ever. The two fingers finally stirred, their voice quieter now, almost pensive. Paths once thought closed now branch anew. Their hollow sockets lingered on Hannes, not with reproach, but with something akin to reassessment. A shift had occurred, irrevocably. The chamber hung heavy with silence, the two fingers' presence now expectant, their hollow gaze fixed on Hannes.
The weight of the moment pressing down like the roots of the Erd tree itself. The two fingers turn fully toward Hannes, their ancient joints groaning with deliberate movement. Their hollow sockets fix upon him, not with accusation, almost wary curiosity. Speak. The word is not a demand nor a plea, it is an offering. An open door. They wait, their presence humming with unspoken anticipation as the air itself coils tight around what Hannes might say next. Melina stands frozen beside him, her crimson eyes wide, caught between awe and apprehension. The truth hangs unsaid. Now, it is his turn.
The air itself seems to thicken, charged with the weight of unspoken revelations. The two fingers remain motionless, their hollow gaze fixed on Hannes, their silence more resonant than any words could be. A heartbeat passes, then another. Melina's fingers twitch at her sides, her breath held. The moment stretches, fraught with meaning yet to be given voice. Then, at last, Hannes stirs.
It is my projection.
The two fingers' joints creak softly, a sound that could almost be the equivalent of a breath held back. What do you mean?
I had projection that spoke for me. Throughout my travels, when I spoke to many characters, you among them, when I traveled, it was a useful tool, but through time it gained strength. And it had access everywhere, even to Marika inside the Earth tree. And it was my way to interact with anything I wanted and desired. And it learned to battle and gained more might through time. And now it had become equal to myself.
The two fingers creak softly in quiet contemplation. A projection? One that grew powerful, even able to interact with gods.
My projection will pass the impenetrable thorns without burning them. It is in its power to do.
The fingers go still, their joints creaking softly. This is a bold claim.
And more, he will absolve me from the burden of lordship. He will carry the mending rune instead of myself, and offer me chance at life. To be part of this society, follow the doctrine of the good will, and serve yet as a free man.
The fingers continue to regard Hannes, their long pause almost a silent assessment. A life without lordship.
It is my projection's burden, and he does it despite the fact that he has learned to love and live and yearns for freedom and might, and shares all my desires and my ambitions, yet more than I, he loves unconditionally.
The fingers creak softly, their voices as low as a distant hum. It is wise to love unconditionally.
It is in his right, for he was birthed suddenly. An absolute most childish naivety in his form has given him the mindfulness and strength of character to see this path through, and he will be redemptive consort to Marikas, the Eternal, inside the Earth Tree, while the thorns remain.
The fingers creaking grows quieter, a slow hum of contemplation, a redemptive consort.
He will carry the mending rune and make the grace abundant. He will do it, and he was inspired by Christ. His journey that I improvised. This I will make into words. My projections idea is inspired by Christ, Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
With those last words, the fingers form creaks off Christ. From Nazareth,
This is why I sought to turn Melina away from her burning. She is the greatest threat to Erdtree now. Her path that was inevitable has come the truly sinful act if she were to commit, and she chose to give up her path. She chose to give away her purpose.
the finger's movement slows, its joints quieting. To forget purpose is a sin.
Age of compassion will rectify all sin.
The finger's movement ceases, a moment of solemn contemplation, forgiveness through action.
Yes, age of compassion is also a escapeway for myself, for my deeds and my sins. I sought this ambitiousness, like a more of a tarnished sort. I seek this path to escape my sins, but also while in amidst to it, I seek to release all others from theirs. Age of compassion is a time where everyone will be decreed and governed as if they have committed no sin. And when the age of reclamation begins and justice and free will takes over once more, it is going to be a pre-slate.
The finger's motion returns almost cautiously. An age where none can say that any are sinners.
I bowed before the two fingers. I had
The fingers regard you, their movement slow and measured. Your actions, your convictions, we observe.
this was not in my mind when I started this journey. This came only while I was at it. All due to happenstance and actions dictated by greater wills.
The fingers pause, their joints creaking softly in deep contemplation. Chance events, and the will of others, but in the end, your actions are your own.
I am a little thief of time. Or thus Marika called me, jokingly.
The fingers creak softly as they hear this, a subtle hint of the humor they can only pretend to understand. A thief of time, eh?
A little thief of time. That can be my more of a foolish nickname given, and I would be happy if people were to use it. When regarding myself, I don't need to be the grace chosen Hannes. I can be the little thief of time. Hannes by name.
The fingers creak softly, almost amused at this declaration. Foolish nicknames can bear deeper truth.
I ask a few winkers what is your mind. Now more casually, friendly like.
The fingers creak softly with an almost playful hum. Our mind, we are the greater will's fingers. We merely seek to understand its will.
I think it would be proper to return Melina's conversing with her once again.
The fingers creak softly, their joints shifting slowly in acknowledgement. Of course. They gesture for Melina to return, the air hanging heavy with anticipation. Their hollow sockets watch her, waiting.
Melina hesitates, the weight of the moment pressing against her chest like an unseen hand. Her crimson eyes flicker between Hannes and the two fingers, uncertainty tightening her throat. A breath, then another. Slowly, she steps forward, her movements deliberate. The chamber hums with silence, thick with unspoken truths. The two fingers remain still, their ancient form poised as if the world itself hinges on what comes next. Hannes watches her, steady, unmoving, his expression inscrutable. The space between them feels vast, and so she waits.
The silence stretches, a heavy tension, the two fingers shift almost imperceptibly. Melina, their voice, the rumble of stone and leaf breaks the quiet.
Melina stiffens at the sound of her name, her chest tight with anticipation. Her gaze rises toward the two fingers, her eyes meeting their hollow sockets. Yes.
They creak softly in acknowledgement, their presence humming with an ancient aura. Come closer.
Melina's heart pounds heavily in her chest as she complies with the command. Each step feels like a monumental effort, the air itself thick with anticipation. She approaches the two fingers, her footsteps echoing quietly in the chamber. As she draws closer, the air around her practically
The fingers
shivers with an
shift, they're
unspoken
creaking a
tension.
low rhythmic hum. Stop. She halts, her heart pounding. So close now. The pins.
Her breath catches in her throat as she follows the command, her feet freezing in place. The space between her and the fingers seems almost unbearably small, the air almost crackling with some unnameable energy.
They creak low and slow, almost thoughtful. The hollow sockets gaze upon her, their eyes seeming to glow faint in the pale light. We have much to discuss, Melina. Their words hang heavy, the air thick with significance, about your purpose and your path.
Melina's harps wildly in her chest, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. My purpose, she repeats faintly, her voice tinged with a mixture of awe and trepidation. And my path. She glances once at Hannes, his presence like a quiet, unmoving anchor amidst the swirling emotions. Then her attention returns to the
The
fingers,
two
her
fingers
gaze
exhale,
steady.
a sound like old parchment shifting. The flame you carry was never meant to consume you. Their joints groan softly as if rearranging thoughts long settled. Hannes intervened, not against fate, but for its truer shape. A pause, deliberate. Your role remains but now unbound by ash. They tilt slightly, their hollow gaze unwavering. Does this align with your understanding?
Melina's mind reels at these words, her mind grappling to reconcile this newfound knowledge with the fate she'd thought was etched in stone. Her heart pounds in her chest, a complex mix of emotions warring beneath her composed exterior. She glances once more at Hannes, his quiet presence a steady anchor amidst the whirlwind of revelation. Taking a slow, deep breath, she turns back to the fingers. Yes, she manages, her voice strong despite the tempest within. It aligns with my understanding.
The two fingers shift, their creaking like old roots settling. Then the path ahead is yours to walk, unburdened by fire's doom. They linger on her, their presence humming with something akin to approval. Hannes saw this truth when even we did not. A slow, deliberate pause. Perhaps that is the mark of true grace.
Melina's heart skips a beat at the finger's words. Grace, she echoes softly, the word now carrying a new weight. A moment hangs between them, the chamber heavy with the implications of this revelation. In the stillness, Melina's eyes flit once again to Hannes, his stoic expression betraying nothing. Finally, she returns her gaze to the fingers, and his role in this new path. She murmurs, her voice almost a whisper.
They creak softly, almost as if considering their words carefully. Hannes walks a path of his own, their presence seems to hum, a deep, reverberating sound, a journey that the greater will did not anticipate. Another pause, deliberate, heavy, A path that may one day be considered sacrilegious?
The weight of the finger's implication settling over her like mist. A journey beyond even the greater will's sight, she murmurs, the realization threading through her words with quiet awe. Her gaze shifts to Hannes, studying the unreadable stillness of his expression. Then his actions, his defiance, she begins, voice trailing off before steadying, were not mere rebellion, but something more. The chamber seems to pulse around them, the air alive with unspoken possibilities. The two fingers remain silent, their hollow gaze holding hers as if... Precisely. Melina follows Hannes silently, her mind still processing the implications of their revelation. As they step into the cool night air, she glances up at the star-filled sky, the world once again bathed in its familiar, comforting vastness. Her heart is heavy with the weight of this new understanding, the implications vast and unfathomable, but beneath it all, a small spark of hope. She takes a deep breath and looks to the next horizon, her gaze steady despite the uncertain path ahead.